Love and immunity, beloveds. God's promise is guaranteed because it's elemental. And this message is for someone that is really dear to my heart. They might not reach out. They might not want to reach out of respect for themselves and out of respect for whatever their wishes is. I respect that. But this message has to be put forward because the word becomes flesh. And when we speak life, that is a power that transmutes death, that transmutes the adversary's will against our promise. See, a lot of us don't know that we are God's promise because we are elemental. And as I stated, and this may be hard for many to understand, especially if you come from a background where you were formed and pushed to believe in a religion or religious understanding, but nothing surpasses your elemental kingdom, beloved. There's nothing external, not even a religion. See, a religion is just a title. It has nothing to do with your elemental kingdom. The same thing that someone may teach you in religion, another person may not even be able to accept that understanding. This is why it said, do not be conformed by the world, but by the renewing of your mind. See, your mind is elemental, and it is a promise that God has guaranteed to everybody of its existence, period. There's nothing that surpasses this understanding but the one that does not want to accept their own Lord and Savior to come into their elemental kingdom and become that promise for them. And where I'm at today, I didn't get here because of no reason. I got here because I dealt with a lot of things in my life. I dealt with more things than many can comprehend. I buried both of my sons, both of them. But one of them, both of them, let me tell you, I put my children, the first one, I put it in the hands of the doctor. They told me, you got about 3 days. Call in your family, call in the pastor, have somebody come and pray over your son because he doesn't have that many more days to live. So my mom tells me, reach out to your grandma first. So I reach out to my grandma, and my grandmother, spiritual, the most spiritual woman that I truly knew. And I didn't get this because as a kid, she would be doing her spirituality and I would be fascinated by it, not understanding at that age that she was spiritual, but I was, by having that fascination and that want to know what she was doing, I was learning myself. So this does not come, it comes genetically. It comes because it was embedded into my elemental kingdom. See, I'm the same promise. But my grandmother told me something that day. She said, sweetheart, do not listen to them doctors. Don't put your baby in them doctors' hands. This is what my grandmother told me. She said, get up from that hospital, go to a church, and you have somebody pray over you. So I did this, beloveds. The doctors, when I left there, my mom and them were still at the hospital. When I left that hospital and I went to that church, these women prayed around me. And this is something that many people will not believe. As these women, I went to this church I was not familiar with. I just went. I had the faith of a mustard seed at that time because you think anybody wants to see or know that their child is about to pass. And the doctors then put a time stamp on an elemental kingdom because that's what ignorance does. Ignorance will put a time stamp on somebody's spirit, and spirit is elemental, which means that as long as you are in the promise or the law of that spirit, spirit is the flesh. Spirit is the promise. Spirit is the life of that body. Spirit is the government, the authority, the everything of this body's existence. And as long as spirit dwells in this kingdom, this body cannot leave this earth, beloveds. And this is something that we do not get because we take our understanding from man and not spiritual influence, our sovereignty, our truth, the truth that will set us free. Well, anyways, I went to the church that day and I knocked on the door. This was on a weekday, not expecting anyone to be there. I went into the church. I started crying to these women. And I tell you no lie. I tell you no lie. I went into the church in the chapel. These 5 women got around me and started praying. Just started praying. They asked me to close my eyes and they started praying. And I won't tell you the rest of what happened in that church. Something supernatural happened. But many cannot comprehend God's favor upon his children because they have been taught. They have been taught in a way in which God does not exist in that understanding. But I won't go there. That's another testament, another story. But when I got back to the hospital, my son was off of the breathing machine. Within 3 days, those same 3 days they decreed that my son had, within those 3 days, the doctor was giving me instructions of how to take care of my son because he was going home, beloveds. And then after that, something else happened because I put my faith in the doctors. I allowed him to get immunized too early, and he caught the immunization. He caught what the immunization was supposed to be protecting him from. And it made him sick. And it gave him a disability. So we put too much favor in man and not enough favor in the elemental kingdom that has guaranteed us a promise to life and life abundantly, beloveds. Well, anyways, 3 years after that, my son passed because I again put my faith in the doctors instead of putting it in God. And this happened to me again with my other son. So where I come from, these testimonies, these truths, these understandings, they come from a place of knowing that we put too much favor in man and not enough favor in the promise that God has already given onto us. And when you are going through something, anything in life, let me show you this. The other day, I got burned. You have to learn that this body is elemental. This burn is it's a mark there, a big old mark. It should have blistered, it should have hurt, but it didn't. It did not, because I know the favor of this elemental kingdom is my promise. And see, every one of these cells in this body must obey that promise, beloveds. Obey it. What I did is I talked to my cells and I told them to comfort this body so that I didn't have to feel the pain of that burn. And do you know what my cells did? It did exactly what I told it to do, because I am an elemental source of nature. Do you hear me? I call those things to be in which they are, and they must. And this is what it means by having the faith of a mustard seed. See, your mustard seed is trillions and trillions of cellular spirits that make up this body's kingdom. It is the fabric of this body's existence. And we don't put our favor in man. I don't put my favor in flesh. See, if I would have used my understanding, my arm would have blistered up and I would have been in pain for days. Do you know that I was not in any pain? And this mark is still here. The burn is still here. See, we are God's promise because we are an elemental kingdom. And we put too much of our faith in man and in beliefs and in flesh. And it tells us, do not honor the flesh, honor the spirit. Why? And it tells us to renew our mind. Why? Because our mind is elemental. It's elemental, which means that it is the parent of this body. And do you think the same parent that you believe is the parent of your name? See, God says, as above, so below, as within, so without. So our internal parent is the spirit, and our external parent is the mother and the father. Just like Mother Earth is our internal parent, and God is our internal father. As on heaven, so on earth. As internal, external. As above, so below. So we got to come out of our, Lord have mercy, over our souls, because our souls have been placed under a very tragic and traumatic spell. And because of that spell, we allow our promise to just pass away from us. Pass away from us. And you know, I had to lose 2 children to get this understanding, to learn how to command my promise, to learn how to speak my promise, because you get tired after a while of losing. See, y'all worried about external shit all the time. That's all that any of y'all can worry about. But inside of you, you in a warfare that you know nothing of. You in a warfare for denying a promise that God has given you. And you keep forfeiting and not believing that it's not going to put you at spiritual warfare. See, we have been disobedient. And that's why we get sick. That's why things happen to us, beloveds. And this is hard for many to understand, because we want to believe everything that man has told us. But man didn't create an elemental kingdom, beloveds. Man did not create this body. We know man came out of the elemental spirit. So we can never take our understanding from man. And this is where we have continued to go wrong. Lifetime upon lifetime, generations upon generations, giving our souls, which is our spirit, and our elemental kingdom over to flesh, and not expecting us to have a spiritual warfare going on within our mind, which is elemental. And it told us, do not take me into a world and alter my mind, but renew it in me, because I am the elemental kingdom of this body's existence. I govern life. As above, so below. As in heaven, so on earth. As within, so without. So if you're taking your understanding from something outside of you, even this body, see, this body was in the womb of nature first. And then it became third dimension, the third part of the Trinity of life, not the first. So you cannot take your understanding from something that has no understanding. That is death at its root nature, beloveds. Death at its root nature. And many will deny this because they love doctrine. They love doctrine. They are willing to forfeit lives, generations, to stand on something that is not real. You know, when I took those losses, I didn't just sit there and become a victim, beloveds. I didn't become a victim. I prayed every day not to have mental illness from losing 2 of my children under the hands of man and doctrine and beliefs. See, I prayed. I asked for favor, because you don't understand what it feels like to lose your children until you lose them. And you don't understand what it feels like to go under mentally and have no one there to help you. No one there to see what you are truly going through, because they don't comprehend what death really is about. So I learned how to communion with God on levels that many cannot comprehend and many will not ever believe. But one thing I will stand on is the promise that God has given upon all of us. We were decreed. We were given dominion over this promise by making us an elemental kingdom, by making us a trinity to life on all of our forms of existence. One spirit governs them all. And when you operate, when you learn how to unlock the faculties, you got trillions of houses inside of this body that you can draw from, that you can ask and it shall be given. Seek and ye shall find. But we keep putting our understanding in doctrine, in man. And maybe this message will not go out and reach anyone, but it's already been given on to you. My word is bond. My word will not return void unless you do not want to receive it. Then that's on you. As I stated, you are a free will being. And if you want to honor death, that's your will. But I chose not to honor death. And I choose to stand in anybody's promise with them. We are all promised life and life abundantly. And many have rebuked that promise from us because they have chose, although ignorant, although spelled, they have chose to take life from the body's understanding and not the root nature of the body creation, our creator. So when I come on here today, this message is for anyone. Anyone. My words will not return void, beloveds. They have already been given dominion and decree because I use an elemental kingdom, which is undeniable, unbreakable, eternal grace upon itself. I call those things to be in which they are, and they must be. See, I'm not asking for anything external. Never will I ever ask for anything external. When I ask for anything external, you know what comes against me? All of the adversaries of that world's beliefs. See, my spirit is now going to be at war with them. Because what they are telling the elemental kingdom in me is that it don't have that favor. That grace is not upon you, love. But my spirit is saying, yes, it is. The battle is not ours, beloveds. The battle is the Lord's. And we should never, never, ever, 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 ever be sick. We should never, ever believe that we should be sick. We should never, ever believe that God wants us to die. That is not true, and that will never be true. And I will stand on that promise. I don't care if you don't believe it. God knows I am an elemental kingdom, and he knows every body of existence is that same elemental kingdom, beloveds. No one can dispute this but the devil itself. And just like I said, bring it on, devil. Bring it on, because your battle, victory is already mine. Victory is already mine. I will never battle. See, I already lost two of my loved ones to a battle that was never mine. Never mine. That battle was never mine to fight. It was never mine to endure. But because of my understandings, because of my teachings, because of that worldly conformity, I forfeited my children's lives. And that's something every day I got to remember. I got to remember it every single day, what I did out of pure ignorance. You know, this testament that I come on here with, this is real, 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 real promise. I've been through more than many people can even endure this lifetime. Still standing strong, still standing as the promise. And I will stand on anything elemental. Anything elemental, believe me, beloveds. My words will not return void. They will go out and do that in which they have been decreed, because I have been given dominion over the elemental kingdom. And my promises were sold. Many of my promises were sold. 2 of them I watched be killed right before my own eyes. The thief comes to kill, steal, and destroy what? Your promises, beloveds. Your elemental kingdom, to lead you in a fleshful, carnal mind. Now we given over our lives. We given over our well-being. We given over our sovereignty. We given over our spiritual wealth. We given over God's elemental kingdom, God's favor to be living in us, dwelling in us as we walk in the footsteps of the immunity of that perfect existence, that perfect image. And one thing that I tell you, I will never, ever do again in my life is never stand on a promise for existence. The minute I disregard somebody as less than, that's the minute that everybody, every one of us, every last one of us made in that same substance will fall from that grace. When you don't understand your root nature, and when you don't understand the understanding that surpasses all understanding, you don't stand. You already fallen. And see, we are fallen. We are fallen. And many will not believe this, and this is the saddest part, because it says we have to ask God to come into us. And many have never done that. Many have never done that. I don't care how many days you went to church. I don't care how many days you prayed. God is elemental. And you must unlock all the faculties in order to have God come into your body's immunity, because it is cellular. And no one has ever taught us this, beloved. So you cannot tell me you know this. It should be taught in our schools. It should be taught in our churches. It should be taught from our parents. It should be taught from every program and system in that world. But it can't, because the world is external. And your understanding, your nature is internal. So something that is not of you can never teach you what you are. That's why it said, by the renewed mind. See, my mind teaches me. My mind are trillions of cellular genetic codes, which I unlock. My ancestors' minds as well. So I draw from my own understanding. See, my understanding is cellular and genetic. It's not flesh. It's not the body. And anyone who has you dwelling in that conformity has forfeited your right, your promise. And when you come through my understanding, when you come through what I went through, you're going to ensure you become the perfect image. I told you, beloveds, I know we tired of walking in the wilderness. I know we tired. You want to know why? Because I'm tired of seeing my people perish because of lack of knowledge. I'm tired of seeing my people agree to see us walk in the wilderness, endure suffering that we should never have to endure, fight battles that are not ours. And when you know better, you do better. You don't block it. You don't act like it don't exist. You do better, because that is how change is automatic and permanent. See, we walking around here able to heal transgressions, sickness, sin, and death. But none of us have favor upon it. None of us. Your faith has fallen from its own grace because your grace is elemental. And anytime you ask, it shall be given unto you. So if you asking for sickness, this body is elemental. It will automatically create that substance, beloveds. I drink of my Father's blood, and the word became flesh and made its dwelling, and we made it our only begotten Son, beloveds. You messing with powers and principalities that you know not of. And then you saying that the devil did it. And the devil can't do anything. I call those things to be in which they are, and they become. The book of Job proved this to us. And an elemental kingdom that this body was formed from, biologically, biology and the science of itself proves this to us, beloveds. I don't need to prove this to any of you guys. This is elemental. There's no other root nature to what I'm saying but its own. And yet you will still let a carnal mind take your promise and then tell you that God said that was the way to do it. No. God said, you, my beloved, you're going to stand as my promise, for my promises. Each and every last one of us is a promise of life's existence. We're not a promise of life or death, but it's existence. Do you hear me? Elemental. E equals MC2, which means that existence created you. And all you got to do is call on that same existence. Don't call on the matter that formed you from that element. You don't call on matter. Matter is an illusion. See, you are so wonderfully and fearfully made that you created an illusion as this body's existence. Our God, or whoever you've been taught to believe in, we got so many understandings. We have denominalized our own spirit, fragmented it in so many understandings that no truth can exist anymore amongst us. When you have no sovereignty, which is just a renewed mind and understanding that you have been given dominion over life and death because you are existence, and you can't call upon your own existence because you have been taught, like it's been bred into you, stamped, sealed, and approved in you, that you should honor all these things in you, an elemental kingdom. Oh, you have to honor them. That's what a transgression and a sin is, for going against God's law. And we do this on a daily basis, beloveds. But one thing I do not like to see is my people perish because of lack of knowledge. Okay, we are a promise, and I stand on that promise. But as I stated, you are a free will being. I can never take anyone's free will being. See, you got a whole world taking your free will and then telling you that the devil did it and telling you that God said that, and that is a lie in its own understanding, because you are an elemental kingdom. No one can dispute this but the devil itself. And just like I said, you ready to battle with the Lord? Bring it on. Because it's time we rebuke that devil. Cast him away. He can no longer live in our land. He can no longer dwell as our sovereignty. He can no longer take what is not his any longer, beloveds. I'm standing on our promise, whether we want it or not. Because until one of us stands on that promise, we forfeit it for every last one of us. That's what a genetic code is all about. Elemental, which means if I break the elements of my own existence, I forfeit my right to existence, beloveds. This is common sense. This is truth that sets us free. And it's a warfare and a battle that we never had to endure. But because of our ignorance, because of our fear, perfect love casts out all fear, because fear has to do with punishment. You so afraid who gonna punish you for truth that you willing to forfeit generations and generations, bodies upon bodies, minds upon minds, to be spelled. To be spelled. Not realizing that this body is a chemical nature. And anytime you alter its genetic code, it becomes a spell, a curse against its own existence. Common sense, beloveds. You are a bloodline. Do you know the understanding of your blood? It's genetic. It's not DNA. It's genetic. It's existence. I drink of my Father's blood. I don't drink of conformity. I don't drink of doctrine. Those have no elements to life. None. It's like drinking of poison and not thinking that your ass ain't gonna die. Slowly. A slow genocide. That your body ain't gonna start aging. That your homeostasis is not going to start to fail you. Common sense, beloveds. You are a biological being. That's what the being in the human being stands for, which means that you are existence of this body. So why would you take your understanding from something that did not give existence to you? That's what the Bible speaks about ignorance. And today I'm standing on all of our promises. We were promised. Each and every one of us are God's elemental promise to existence. And you got people right now forfeiting yours because you don't understand who you are at your root nature. But as I stated, you are a free will being. As long as you sign over your soul, which is your spirit, which is the contract to existence, not to the world. Once you give your spirit, it must obey whatever conformity, because you are a chemical body, beloveds. Now you are spelled. And you don't come out of a spell. You don't, beloveds. How do you unspell a chemical body? Come on. Since y'all know everything, since you know God told you all this, and you know how to call on God, how do you unspell a chemical body? You got to know who you are. You got to know these words will not return void. They will go out and do that in which they have already been decreed and given dominion over, because I am. And the word became flesh and made his dwelling. So you let a word feed off of your sovereignty, your existence, and it will become existence inside of your body. Death, disease, crime, anything you call in its name, only you can create it. Atoms forming into molecules and then matter, beloveds. Common sense. And yet, why isn't it taught to us? Why doesn't it dwell in our renewed minds? When you are so fearful of what man is going to do to you, well, who is man? Man is an illusion. You afraid of a man that God has already given warfare to? See, warfare is going on with man. You know this. This is why we get sick. This is why we die. The battle ain't ours. It's the Lord's. So I ain't going to battle. I'm not battling with anything. Not a disease, not a word, not a doctrine, not a belief. I'm going to give it over to the Lord. Because they already at warfare for being disobedient. See, you got to remember, your body is an Akashic record, which means it holds every sin that every generation placed within this kingdom. And some of us are dealing with those sins right now, not understanding that we have to go and we have to break. those transgressions and sins. They call them breaking those chains. But the chains y'all breaking are fleshful. They don't do what you are believing them to do, because only an elemental kingdom can do those things. How? Everything man has been teaching us is carnal. It is opposite, which means that it is spelling us. Why? I'm going to say this one more time, because you are a bloodline. You are a chemical body. Do you even know what a chemical body is? And that's very sad when we don't even understand our own understanding. And it surpasses all understanding. It's something that we should not have to even learn. It is our living right. It is the renewed mind which tells itself its own understanding, because you were born biological and you are the biology of this biological being as a cell. And then you are the science of this cellular nature as the body. Trinity of life. You don't need no understanding. That's why I said, don't go conform me to that world. That world is finna program you, spell you against me, teach you over your own understanding that surpasses all understanding, and then tell you that I told you to do that and that the devil did it. You know not what you have done. And now you have spiritual warfare, because spirit is elemental. Spirit is not going to let any autoimmune, any belief, anything that's not element come into its kingdom. It just won't do that, beloveds. I don't need to prove this to you. This is biological. And yet you don't even know it. And anybody questioning this truth, anybody not believing this truth, you wonder why you're going through the things that you are going through. I hear you, Spirit. I hear you. Truth sets us free. And if you following anybody who ain't standing in that elemental kingdom, you fallen. You fallen right along with them. You fallen from your own promise. So how can God come in and save you? How could God come in and rebuke the sins and transgressions of that world that they just plaguing you, injecting you, teach in you, lead you as fear in you, and then make you think that somebody is going to kill you? No, nobody is ever killing off this body. I hate to say this. The only thing that can destroy an elemental kingdom is spirit. And what I told you, what it kills off is anything that is not elemental. Criminals. That's why criminals die. Because they're not elemental. Spirit is going to use them to kill off all the criminals. Hate is not elemental. This body is agape, which means its only immunity is love, beloveds. That's the only thing this body can drink of. That's why it's the highest frequency and vibration of existence, love. Everything else is not elemental. It's a toxin. It's an autoimmune. It is an antibody. It is an antichrist. And I want to see somebody try to dispute what I'm saying. I want to hear all you doctors, all you pastors, all you who have titles and idols. Tell me what I'm saying is a lie. Scientists, biologists, come on, I need y'all. Stand up. Stand for our existence. Stand for our promises. It's time. We deserve it. Every last one of us deserves it. My people perished because of lack of knowledge. And when you don't even understand, knowledge is biological. It is your biology and it is your science, all a trinity within its own elemental kingdom. You take no understanding from the world. You take no understanding from man. You take no understanding from anything that does not have an element to its creation. That's why you were created from blood, to always be able to protect your existence. Now, every time you allow one promise, I and my Father are one body under Christ, or one body under Spirit, or one body under the same blood, which is the genetic code to all bodies of existence. Every time you sacrifice one, you sacrifice us all. We are an element, beloveds. We are all a frequency and vibration. Blood, cell, and body. Just because you got a different last name, just because you got a different color, just because you're a different sex, does not exclude us. That's a blasphemy to God, which is our very fabric of existence. And I'm tired of seeing my people perish. I'm tired of seeing us fight a battle that does not belong to us. I'm tired of seeing us harm each other and treat each other like shit and telling us that God said it and this is the way it's supposed to be. No, you are a liar. And I rebuke you, Satan, because you don't realize you have something inside of you, using you, abusing you. And if you think it's doing that to you, don't think it's going to use you to do that to others. It will. The mind is one under God, which means itself. So all minds is one under the same Spirit, beloveds. That's why we all can believe in the same thing and be okay with the world's conformity and not see that it's okay to do things that we know is wrong. Slavery was wrong, but it still was done. You want to know why? Because somebody used spiritual warfare against us. They used our sovereignty against us. That's how slavery was able to happen. If you want to keep anybody dumb, ignorant, or enslaved, you keep them from their elemental kingdom, period. You keep them in the world. You keep them conformed. You keep them sick. And the only thing that can get sick is the mind, because mind is over matter. Mind is over this body. So if I keep their minds spelled, I can do anything with them. But the only thing that they can do is keep God out of your elemental kingdom. So you will never have eyes to see what is being done to you. Never. And only you can do this to yourself. It doesn't matter if they did it. Only you can do this to yourself because you are the elemental kingdom. And you have to sign your spirit away to be conformed. You have to give your okay. And although you did not say, I agree, you agree. Common sense, beloveds. Truth sets us free. And first you have to become its genetic code. And then you got to unlock all the faculties inside of your kingdom. So now that they can lead you and teach you. And that's why prophets came. Prophets came because the world was spelled. And they had the knowledge and the wisdom and the understanding of God's word as living genetic codes of life. Life is so easy. It's elemental, beloveds. I mean, it's magic. You alchemy. And somebody can cast dark magic on you. And once you are spelled because you are a chemical body, then you just are forevermore until the Passover comes again and somebody genetically awakens and leads you out of the wilderness. That simple, that beautiful, that honorable, that righteous. But as I stated, you are a free will being and you got to accept God to come into your life. That means you got to get out of the world because I and my Father is only one. He cannot be internal and external. It's just not possible. It's just not. You learn how to understand this kingdom, then it takes care of that kingdom. As above, so below. As in heaven, so on earth. As within, so without. Common sense. Truth is genetic, biological, biology, and its own science. You do not need a teacher, a pastor, a doctor, anything under a title to teach you. You are the biology and the biological wisdom of all of existence. And through you was the world created. And did the world get its existence in its reality? So why would you take anything from something that only an elemental kingdom can create? Blasphemy, enslavement, carnal, ignorance, sin, sickness, and death at its root nature. No other way, no other form, no other substance. Just one. I and my Father are one. And everything is spiritual. And when we don't honor the spirit, we die by the flesh. We talk by the flesh. We govern by the flesh, which is carnal. That's what we call the devil. That's what we call evil. That's what we call sick. That's what we call sinful. That's what we call transgressions. Common sense, beloveds. Life is not as hard as we have been teaching an elemental kingdom. Once you teach an elemental kingdom, it is now conformed. Now, because it's a chemical body, it must follow that conformity. It's placed under a spell. I have to keep saying this because if I don't, your mind has no expansion. Your mind is so closed off and boxed off. That's why you have to do things repetitively to understand. You got to keep repeating the same thing. That's what schools do to you, to program you to become their program. That's what religion does to you, to bring you into their program. That's what any title does to you, to make you their program. You're the elemental kingdom. Why would you want to be something less? You are the creator of existence. So why would you want to be a title? Why would you want to be a program? Why would you want to be a body? Although you are the body, you don't have to dispute that, but you cannot give your spirit onto something that is not. Spirit is spirit. I and my Father are one. Simple, beautiful testament back into life. But as I stated, you are a free will being, but I will always, always honor my obedience. And my obedience is my nation, one under God, My people perish because of lack of knowledge. No other reason. Knowledge is biological, biology, and its own science. And it needs no understanding but the one that came as itself. You are the book of life. You are written in the book of life because you are it. And then you are written out of it by going and conforming yourself to the world. It's just that simple. We don't have to go through the things that we have gone through. We go through them because we choose. And it took me a long time. I could not believe this. I was so angry when I found this out. You think I would choose this? No, nobody. Look, I was angry for 2 years. I could not think. Emotionally, I was destroying myself because I couldn't understand that anyone would do this to me. But then I had to understand I am a free will being. It don't matter if you ignorant. It don't matter if nobody has ever told you this. God made you elemental so you could be the mind of itself and the soul which never forgets about its lineage. So I couldn't understand this for a long time. Who in the fuck would lead me in this shit? Who would do this to me? Why would my parents, why would anybody teach me this? I was angry. But then as I got wiser, as God started to teach me more and more, as my elemental kingdom started to awaken, my faculties started to awaken, my ancestors started to walk in my footsteps with me. I became my own understanding, beloveds. You become the sovereign being of your land. This is the first land. And then the second land you were given dominion over. This one belongs to spirit. And anything that belongs to spirit belongs to everything. Everything, beloveds. Everything. I don't want to belong to a world. It's an illusion. Now I'm casting stones against my nation. Now I'm rebuking my nation's promises. Now I am just forfeiting my whole nation. I'm not going to be that generational curse. I'm not going to be that Akashic record ever against my existence or my nation's existence. Never. I will never be that. My ancestors, they taught me this. They taught me this. We were not a transgression. We were not a sin. That's why you got this promise. That's why you were anointed and appointed. This is a spiritual nation. Nobody can dispute that. That's what blood is. Blood is pure energy, pure light, spirit. And this body, once the spirit leaves this body, there's no more existence, beloveds. It's common sense. So why wouldn't you honor the thing that gives you existence and not the thing that gives you death? Forfeited our promises by understanding that has no understanding, and nothing elemental can feed your nation. Nothing. Nothing that's not elemental can teach you. It will spell you, will cast the first stone against your nation, which is this body. And I and my Father is one with every other body of existence. None of us is excluded. Perfect love casts out all fear because fear has to do with punishment. The minute you believe that somebody is going to kill you or hurt you for being obedient to your promise, your law, your existence, your life, is the day that spirit is going to put you at spiritual warfare with that word you decreed upon your very fabric of existence. Do you know how many deaths you have cast out in your name by believing in carnal understandings. Do you understand how many deaths you have decreed by believing in man's word and what created you as elemental, which is existence? Do you know how many people you have hurt by speaking nothing but death over their existence? And now wondering why you now become the mind of that transgression, and all you can produce is that sin and sickness in other people. I'm just going to speak the truth. It hurts like hell, but what it does is it heals our nation. When you can walk in it, when you can just say, shit, I was fucked up, I was sick. Then it says, oh, thank you, baby. That's all we was waiting for. We was waiting for you to just admit what you done to us. Now we got your back. Now we can fight your battles. But until you accept God, your elemental kingdom, and the word became flesh, you just a curse upon your own nation, which is this body and all bodies of existence. I'm just going to keep it real. I'm not speaking any lies against my nation. I'm not going to be the one to cast the stone. Judge ye not unless ye want to be judged. And I don't ever want to be judged. Not in my elemental kingdom. I told you. I'm royal. I'm the greatest asset to life. And I wouldn't take that from myself to be anything less. I just wouldn't. I've suffered enough of those worlds, sickness, sins, and transgressions and deaths. I had to bury 2 of my children because of it. And then I had to face the fact that I did it. I did it. So I stand on every promise, because every one of these bodies is my promise. Until I stand on them, until I stand with them, united we stand, divided we fall. One nation under God, because this is a spiritual realm. And when we ain't all under that one sovereignty, that one grace, that one agape love, we sick. Look at us. Look what we do to each other. I mean, on a daily basis, it is like hell in that world. You fighting battles that you can never win. You praying to a God that will never hear you. You blaming a devil that does not exist but in your mind. My people perish because of lack of knowledge, beloveds. You are an elemental kingdom, and I want whoever. You don't believe this? Call me out on it. Call me out on it. Because God will answer your call. God will answer your call. Call me out on it. I speak these words, and they shall not return void, as they have already been given dominion over all of existence, because they are elemental. They are truth. They are cellular. They are our nation's living existence. And nothing formed against them can prosper but its own warfare. The battle ain't mine. I'm not fighting anyone. I don't have to prove anything to anyone. But if you call me out, I ensure God answers your call. I can do that for you. I stand on your promise. I stand on your living right. I stand on your truth. I stand on your sovereignty until you're ready to walk in it. Because it ain't going nowhere. It's not going anywhere. It's not. I'm obedient. And I will forevermore be obedient. Because that's my genetic code. God bless us all. And we don't have to go through this anymore, beloveds. It's just not worthy of us. It's not righteous of us. It's not godly of us. If nobody has told you today love and immunity, I love you. I am not condemning you. Please don't believe I am offending you. Truth. I tell you, it hurts like hell, but it gets you out of hell. And I know y'all tired. I know you tired. I know you so tired of walking in an understanding that is not God's. God bless us all.